seeing is believing. Like rooms like these, we need to include more and more people. And I think that's why, Lydia, it's so important to include more and more people who are actually risk approvers, investment decision makers, because they don't really know enough about this stuff. Zarak, Pasha, I head carbon finance at Standard Chartered Bank. Now sitting here today, I feel really optimistic that carbon is financeable. We're seeing the equity investors coming in, we're seeing the insurance sector come in, we're seeing the banks come in, and it's only going to get better from here.
Super quickly, Henrietta, co-founder, CEO of Carbo. We're both a technology developer as well as a project developer. My hot take is that mandating perfection is the enemy of action. I just was at another event earlier this week where we were discussing how to get companies to do voluntary climate action. It's not just the global headwinds. We actually also shot ourselves in the foot by kind of slamming people for taking action. There's some kind of a balance of sort of mandating rules and restrictions and all that kind of stuff. But then if it gets too far, people are afraid to take action. And I think that's what's crippled companies right now from taking voluntary action. So let's improve everything as we go along, but let's also do stuff that's mandatory for the climate.
I'm Oliver. I'm one of the co-founders of Cula. At CRBC, I'm one of the few people in the company that don't know how to code. Basically what we saw is like when you go to a site, typically how data is collected, it's pen and paper. Pen and paper goes to Excel goes to the MOE system, and the MOE system sends to a standard. I think that's something that we've been wanting to change and have been changing in the past, to really focus on integrating into machinery, basically trying to automate as much as possible and basically get the biochar industry to the next stage.
Julien and I work at Puro.earth. We're a standard registry. What you can see, right? So, well, sorry to say, I'll send you the real picture when I find it again. But it was something like that, really. You know, you had on one side of the street trees that had been, and they had used the biochar 5 years ago. And you had one side of the street where the trees were a lot more fluffy and a lot cooler. And on the other side, they appeared a bit more dry. We need more of those pictures. We need more of those, practical, here is what happened with my biochar. We monitor in the registry the time between the issuance of a carbon credit and the times it is transferred for the first time. And we do the same between the time when it is issued and the time it is retired. We've monitored that over the past 4 or 5 years, which is when the methodology from Puro started. Those delays have reduced significantly, 300 days from issuance to retirement for biochar 4 years ago to 60, 70 days now.
I'm always curious about how biochar works. Professor Colin, Snape.
Okay, so Lydia, to say I've got 2 minutes to introduce biochar. Here is a sample. And biochar is essentially produced in exactly the same way as charcoal, where you're heating material up essentially in the absence of air. In terms of carbon sequestration, we heat a feedstock up, is roughly half the carbon ends up here in the biochar. The other half comes off as volatile material, which can be oil, it can be gas. Depending on feedstock, you have some energy available for export. So that
one of the reasons we decided to sponsor this event was because of Lydia. Lydia's done some amazing work. I've attended her events before. Is just really excited on the collaborative nature of it. I've got a test here that I wanted to do. It's a bit reminiscent of what we do in the Philippines, but the real benefit that we've seen in biochar is its odor absorption capabilities. One of the things that we do in the Philippines is we apply our biochar, we give it to poultry farm owners that have massive fly infestation issues in the Philippines because they've got a lot of chicken litter just lying around. We mix biochar with it. It's very efficacious, eliminates the fly infestation by 90%, largely due to the odor absorption capabilities.
Theoretically, you could reach a point where you sell the biochar to the growers, you make money, put that into your MRV, put that into your project. That's the best kind of financing is no financing.
How can policy clarity accelerate private capital? I don't know. This might sound a bit ironic coming from the government, but I think government is slow. We need to innovate around the government, because if we wait for the government to do something, it will take too long.
We've been running these kind of breakfast event for a while. At the beginning of this year, we run it with Women in Carbon. We have Elise here in this exact same room, focused on marine CDR. we've done in ERW during London Climate Action Week. And this time, we have a whole room of people who are from different places around the world because of Carbo Unbound. So I just use this as a chance to bring people together. We have this little test actually from our beloved sponsor, Alcom. Do you guys want to try?
We did. But I was asking more like, why is it that how does it work?
Can you please explain this a bit? This test, I don't know who have done it, but it's there. So it's like an experiment. Because I'm fascinated with the climate work. I'm not a scientist. I'm always curious about how biochar works. In this room, I think 90% of people know biochar more than I do. So this is a pure vinegar. This is a vinegar with sand. And this vinegar with rice husk biochar. So I will give it to, this is our sponsor for the events. I really, really am grateful about people who are willing to support the event, who's willing to give out their generous time to be here. And I wanted to make it as fun as possible, so please explain. For the people who have tested, can you vote?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. It's really nice to see everyone here to make it on technically the day after Carbon Unbound. So quite excited to see the turnout here despite the train issues that we've been having lately. One of the reasons we decided to sponsor this event was because of Lydia. Lydia's done some amazing work. I've attended her events before as well. Really excited on the collaborative nature of it. With that being said, I've got a test here that I wanted to do. It's a bit reminiscent of what we do in the Philippines, and I want to share some of our findings there.
I want to do a very quick, this is like a very basic test.
I only wanted vinegar and rice as biochar. They're like, just put sand there as well, just to give people an idea of how it works. But the real benefit that we have seen in biochar is its odor absorption capabilities. One of the things that we do in the Philippines is we apply our biochar, we give it to poultry farm owners that have like massive fly infestation issues in the Philippines because they've got a lot of chicken litter just lying around. We mix biochar with it. It's very efficacious, eliminates the fly infestation by 90%, largely due to the odor absorption capabilities. We then take that out, convert it to our own proprietary biofertilizer, and apply it on the ground back to the farmers. It's a very circular approach. We give it back to the farmers that were in either scenario taking the poultry manure. Now they just take it with 20 to 30% of biochar mixed in with it. These are the 3 samples. I do want to take.
People have spoken, I think fairly. I guess that's the result that you want, right?
Kind of. I mean, it's yeah.
Okay.
Quite happy to see that.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into, usually how we start this session is we always have a scientist to talk through what is the science behind this specific pathway. And today we have the honor and pleasure to have Professor Colin Snape to guide us through this.
Okay, so Lydia, to say I've got 2 minutes to introduce Biochar. So best way to start is here is a sample. And I think to those of you not familiar with biochar, the nearest analogue is charcoal. And biochar is essentially produced in exactly the same way as charcoal, where you're heating material up essentially in the absence of air. There are some differences with charcoal, which we'll can go into in greater detail. But the point I want to get over in terms of carbon sequestration, we heat a feedstock up, is roughly half the carbon ends up here in the biochar. The other half comes off as volatile material, which can be oil, it can be gas, and normally that is typically combusted. That provides energy for the process, and depending on feedstock, you have some energy available for export. So that does represent a potential income stream. We've heard already about the many applications of biochar. Just to mention, in terms of agricultural use, Rob can correct me here, it's probably best described as a soil improver. It's incredibly porous material. It'll absorb its own weight in moisture, and because it can do that, it can absorb nutrients. So it essentially provides a slow release mechanism. So potentially you can see that there are ways to reduce fertilizer use. However, in terms of agricultural use, there is a happy medium. If you go overboard, you apply too much biochar, everything is locked up too strongly, and literally you find nothing will grow. So as well as agricultural use, we've heard about aggregates, huge market getting biochar into cement, road aggregates, and the thing you need to consider all the time is biochar quality. There are some fairly exacting standards out there of essentially 3 grades of biochar. Top is what can go into animal feed, next is agricultural grade, and at the bottom is what goes into aggregates. And essentially, as you come down the pyramid, you're going to higher concentrations of pollutants. So is that 2 minutes?
Yes.
So I think I'll...
We have all learned about biochar now. I
Okay.
invite all my lovely panelists to be on the panel.
But
So I'm so
and anybody's not familiar with biochar, this is made from a wood and can pass it around so you can still see the shape. Some particles represent the starting feedstock. Yeah, feel free to have a smell of it.
Feel free to have a smell of it. I love how everyone is geeking out on biochar. So today we have a full room of turnout on a horrible day outside, but it's cozy here. And we have amazing guests here. Everyone is sitting very cozily. So Secure CDR, I need to have a plug for myself. I started a company with the vision to group the carbon credits and help them to get debt financing, which is currently missing now. I, by chance and by luck, have been working in some of the great banks like Standard Chartered and have come across many startup founders in the CDR space. So I've been doing this. I enjoy doing this as well. And then we're going to start. We have 1 hot take, 1 cold facts, and 1 story from each panelist. And we'll start from Henrietta because she's actually very generous with her time. She needs to catch her flight very soon.
Hi, everybody. Super great to be here. I think we could have listened to Professor Colin for at least 2 hours. And there's days and days of stuff to talk about biochar. But super quickly, Henrietta Moon, co-founder, CEO of Carbo. We're both a technology developer as well as a project developer. My cold fact is that we just announced our first commercial facility development in the Netherlands called ARC about a week ago, and it's nestled next to a kind of hotspot of greenhouses. So huge energy offtake. So we produce both power and heat, which the greenhouses need. The biochar goes into the growing mixture that's used to basically grow the plants, so growing media. Super great, interesting market for us. We've been working with the kind of industry to be able to cater to them, as food growing, of course, has its own sort of standards and so forth. I'll get to my hot take quickly. My hot take is that mandating perfection is the enemy of action. I just was at another event earlier this week where we were discussing how to get companies to do voluntary climate action. It's not just the global headwinds. We actually also shot ourselves in the foot by kind of slamming people for taking action. There's some kind of a balance of sort of mandating rules and restrictions and all that kind of stuff. But then if it gets too far, people are afraid to take action. And I think that's what's crippled companies right now from taking voluntary action. So there needs to be some kind of a balance there, I think. And I think let's improve everything as we go along, but let's also do stuff that's mandatory for the climate.
Can only echo what Henrietta has been saying. I think there's actually a lot of companies who are investing in biochar carbon removal, but are not publicly saying it because they're still scared of any sort of backlash. I'm Oliver. I'm one of the co-founders of Cula. At TBC, I'm one of the few people in a company that don't know how to code. So I have the pleasure of mostly working with engineers. We basically got into that space. Maybe I start with the story. Kind of stumbled into the space. So I was visiting this farmer in northern Germany, first with the goal to how can we help, basically a group of students, how can we help to improve your soils? We're looking at agroforestry first, and then this guy had this self-built tiny paralysis machine, very crappy machine. But he's like, hey, this is saving my soil. And then afterwards we got hooked. I'm like, okay, we're techies, what can we do? How can we help? And then by visiting more plants, actually, what my first interview I had with someone in Biochar was with Carbo Culture, with
really?
Charlotte and Lucas. So it's actually, yeah, thank you for helping out.
Small circles.
Basically, what we saw is like when you go to a site, typically how data is collected, it's pen and paper. Pen and paper goes to Excel. Excel goes to the MRV system, the MRV system sends to a standard. I think that's something that we've been wanting to change and have been changing in the past, to really focus on integrating into machinery, basically trying to automate as much as possible and basically get the biochar industry to the next stage. I think that's something we've seen. There's so many things you can improve to help make operators' life easier, but also bring a little bit more trust to the bio side. Cool fact, I think it's a boring one. Something I think biochar, if you look at the science that has been evolving, is really turning out to be quite permanent. All the negative things that people are saying it's not permanent, I think we're starting to enter this discussion. My hot take would be an MRV system is not an MRV system if it doesn't connect to any sort of sensors. So I think Excel, I wouldn't count as MRV. I'm happy to discuss about that. The last thing, a bottleneck, I think that's really something like we're operating now in 22 countries around the world supporting biochar projects. And something that we see is really this application of biochar is not as easy as everyone thinks, especially when you go into a new country. It's a new industry. Farmers are quite skeptical. Anyone is quite skeptical. And so we really need more adoption on how this biochar, like basically how biochar can be best used. And I think we're really starting to see those benefits. We hear all these war stories on how biochar has helped the soils, and we just need to keep going that way. And I think if you unlock the biochar use, then we'll also unlock a huge bottleneck for the industry. But yeah, enough talking for me.
Right. I'm Colin Snape, and I lead a large UK project called the Biochar Demonstrator, which is funded by our research councils, and it's really looking at all the factors that might limit the extent to which biochar can be deployed by 2050 to help meet the UK's greenhouse gas removal target. For biochar to contribute only 10% of that target, you're looking at an industry which would be 2 or 3 million tonnes of biochar. You may think, wow, that's big. Given that global production of biochar is probably still around about 1 million tonnes, but it is taking off exponentially. But the carbonisation industry needed is incredibly small to what we had 50 years ago in the UK when I was about that big, where we had carbonisation plants all over the place supplying domestic fuel and also coke to the iron and steel industry. Really, the one called hard fact is on policy and regulation. I think we are somewhat behind the curve in the UK because of how policy and regulation is set out. I mean, we've been working very closely with the government, and there has been a recent independent review. So we are expecting some good news with respect to how biochar is regulated in the UK. But I think just to re-echo your point, MRV really has to be a pragmatic approach, what is sensible. And I think biochar is relatively straightforward compared to enhanced rock weathering, because essentially all we have to do is measure how much carbon goes in the ground. Surely that's not too difficult, and then make some prediction based on properties. Will a biochar stick around for, let's say, 1,000 years? But for enhanced rock weathering, you're putting mineral in the ground, and it can take anything up to 50 years for it to react with CO2.
Something to say about this photo.
So for those of you who have not seen a biochar production facility, this is a pilot plant, and this, if it was operating 24/7, which it's not because it is a demonstration unit, this would process something like 7,000 tonnes of feedstock and produce 2,000 tonnes of biochar. So that is a typical scale. You wouldn't go much bigger because you are looking at distributed feedstock. And once you start moving low density wet feedstock over large distances, your life cycle emissions and your costs start to skyrocket. So I think, Lydia, that's all I want to say.
Every panelist to send me a photo. Henrietta has photoed her photo today. If you do need to catch your flight, feel free to leave.
Yeah, I need to leave.
But I'm so happy that everyone can be in the room, and I understand all the people are super busy. I love breakfast myself, so that's why I arrange breakfast, and I feel like it's the only time that people who are in Carbo and Bank can be in town. So appreciate. So if you want to
applause for you for organizing.
if you and we are speaking about the photos. The next one, Zarak has sent me 2 photos out of his very, very busy schedule.
No, maybe just quickly introducing myself. Zarak Pasha, I head carbon finance at Standard Chartered Bank. So Lydia is an alumni, and that's why, despite the Northern Line closing down and whatever else may happen, I had to be here. This photo is actually credit to Julien and his team. Puro actually took us last year, I think, to a facility in England producing biochar, and it was our first time seeing a project firsthand. We took along a lot of our banking colleagues, people who don't spend their day jobs thinking about sustainability, environmental, social problems, but people who think about derivatives and financial structuring and debt capital markets, etc., and risk officers, right? And it was pretty powerful, right? Seeing is believing. I think most of these technologies, like rooms like these, we need to include more and more people, and I think that's why, Lydia, it's so important to include more and more people who are actually risk approvers, investment decision makers, because they don't really know enough about this stuff. I'm going to jump to my cold facts and hot takes and whatnot, but I mean, I'm from Pakistan. Pakistan produces more than, I don't know, 450 million tons of organic waste every year, right? And the Indian subcontinent as a whole is like, the numbers go up to 1.5 billion. Granted, there's almost 2 billion people there, but it's a lot of waste. And if you go to Pakistan or India right now, this time of year, you can't breathe in some of the cities because people take agricultural crop sort of waste and burn it. And you can't see the sky, you can't see the sun, like it's really, really bad. So it's a big problem, and they have these massive water tankers going up and down the street, spraying water at the smog, trying to just calm things down a bit so kids can go to school. Last year, we had 3 weeks where all public schools were shut down in Lahore, which is the second most populous city in Pakistan, around 8 million people living there. So it's a big problem, and I know biochar is not the only solution, but it's, as Professor said, it's one of the solutions to this massive problem that we have. Hot take, I'd say, like, if I was sitting here 2 years ago and you asked me, is any carbon project financeable? I would say, yeah, it's going to take some time, right? Since then, we were the first bank in the world to pilot financing for a enhanced rock weathering project. So if you think biochar is difficult, think about enhanced rock weathering. And the only way we were able to do it was we worked together with the insurance sector, right? And we figured out how can we de-risk the solution such that it can sit on a bank's balance sheet. I think since then, the industry has evolved even more. Last month, we closed the world's first project finance facility together with 5 other banks, $210 million, going into a afforestation project in the US, Chestnut. Now, sitting here today, I feel really like optimistic that carbon is financeable. And we're seeing the equity investors coming in, we're seeing the insurance sector come in, we're seeing the banks come in, and it's only going to get better from here. For those of you in this room who are biochar developers, I think the onus is kind of on you to make sure that you bring people in and explain to them why your technology is so robust, why it's so predictable, why it behaves like an industrial process. And I think risk officers will then just be able to tick off one by one their risk registers and say, yeah, we've seen this before in this kind of context. So that's my hot take. Story, I think I've already gone through. Seeing is believing. So invite people into your project, show them what it looks like. And then bottleneck, I would say, from a banking and investor community perspective, our biggest bottleneck is due diligence. We do not have a standardized approach to due diligence a carbon project. Everyone has their own framework. An insurer will ask you their set of 100 questions. We will ask our set of 100 questions. And then B0 or Silvera will ask their set of 100 questions. And those questions don't really speak to each other. So we don't have a framework for due diligence. There are no real utilities out there that can give us a consistent, standardized view on due diligence. A carbon rating talks about integrity of carbon. That's not the same as the carbon being financeable. So everyone's speaking a different language. And so we need to come to this common language. I'll stop there.
Everything's been said already. Hi everyone, so I'm Julien. I work at Puro.earth. We're a standard registry. We have 8 CDR methodologies, of which one is Biochar. My cold fact is, so Puro has now certified over 1.2 million tons of CDR, which is something we're very proud of. We've been in existence for 6 years, and we plan on issuing another million ton within the next 18 months. Total of those 1.2 million tons so far have been around 400,000 Biochar corks. I think by the end of the year, we could reach the 500,000 landmark and definitely grow that number also next year. Other cold fact briefly, but just to also, give credit to the success story of Biochar from a carbon credit perspective. We monitor in the registry the time between the issuance of a carbon credit and the times it is transferred for the first time. And we do the same between the time when it is issued and the time it is retired. And we've monitored that over the past 4 or 5 years, which is when the methodology from Puro started. And those delays have reduced significantly. The numbers are something like 300 days from issuance to retirement for Biochar 4 years ago to 60, 70 days now. And something like 200 days between issuance and first transfer 3 years ago to around 22 days on a weighted average now. So this just goes to show how much more dynamic the Biochar carbon credit market is. And if you add to that also the number of people actually retiring those credits, we have over 300 companies that have retired Puro Biochar credits. This was maybe 3 years ago. So, Biochar is paving the way, is a success story, paving the way, I think, for other, hopefully, CDR methodology, but it is a front runner converting people basically to CDR. So it's a beautiful picture. It is a beautiful picture. I did it on ChatGPT this morning because I couldn't find the original, which looks less good, but kind of similar. So I'm French, and when I started working at Puro over 3 years ago, there was one biochar plant that I could, go by train to, which is in Normandy in the north of France. So, this is ChatGPT's take on the Normandy landscape here. What was cool is that they had used the biochar on one side of a road in the city and not on the other side. And then they had monitored how the trees on one side versus the other had performed. What you can see, right? So, well, sorry, it's AI. So, we can, I'll send you the real picture when I find it again. But it was something like that, really. You had on one side of the street trees that had been, and they had used the biochar 5 years ago. And you had one side of the street where the trees were a lot more fluffy and a lot cooler. And on the other side, they appeared a bit more dry. Where I want to go with this is we need more of those pictures. We need more of those, practical, here is what happened with my biochar. I love on LinkedIn when I see someone, for example, in Latin America, showing me like a cornfield and another cornfield, one with biochar and the other not, and see the difference in yields and all those things. And I think those stories right now, we're probably able to, flood the market with those. And those are going to be super helpful to bring biochar to the next step. So with the banks, it's making its way, but even more with the mainstream domain and people who haven't necessarily heard about it so far.
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, seeing is believing. And that's why we are going to put everything on YouTube about this breakfast club. So if you don't want to be in the camera, don't I think everyone is very good looking and nobody's actually watching the YouTube channel. So it's carbon removal breakfast club. At some point, all the banks will start watching it as a due diligence, right? And that's why I think that it's very important. And I did ask Oliver to send me a photo.
It's just me in front of a pyrolysis plant. It's the first industrial one that I visited. I think which is nice, like seeing is believing.
With that timing, it's perfect because breakfast has been served slowly. So I will invite my panelists and the guests to enjoy your breakfast. And then when you guys are eating, I'm going to give out the first prompt for the first breakout session, which you are going to do something with the people in your table. Okay, guys, vote for this one. What challenge is the biggest roadblock to scale biochar? MRV costs, capex and feedstock supply, farmer adoption, insurance and durability, risk, policy. This is for the first breakout. If you had 10 million in 6 months of catalytic capital to remove one bottleneck in biochar, where does it go? So this is the topic for you to enjoy the breakfast and chat with people who are on your same table. I give each one of you a different napkin. So this is for you to meet your next table. This table will have the heart people. This table will have the blue napkin. Yeah, rainbow is here. This table will have this. Whoever that has this will come here. I hope everyone is happy with the new people, like the heart table, the blue and cake table, the rainbow table. Can we come back to our flow? Is how do you feel about the roadblocks now? Funding. See, now you can see what's the. A lot of you have voted funding. We're gonna learn about this carbon financing fist bump. How many of you know about this? I guess no one. Yeah. So this is something that I think is really fun to do. It's grab a ton of CO2, put it on the capital stack, wrap it with insurance, and fist bump. Now, find another person, try to do this together. Next to you, like grab a ton of CO2, put it on the capital stack, wrap it with insurance, and fist bump. Wrap it with insurance and fist bump. Grab a ton of CO2, put it on a capital stack, wrap it with insurance, and fist bump. The second panel is bankability. We're gonna just ask the panelists sitting on their table to share their one bankability superpower with us. This first one is Professor Colin.
I should say, first of all, this is based on UK experience, but most of the roadblocks to biochar deployment in the UK, as well as getting business models to stack up, are all to do with policy and regulation. I think we are making some progress, but as you know, government departments have a very large turning circle. But ideally, in another year or two, we would expect policy and regulation to be more favourable for biochar development.
Can you sorry to jump in? Can you because I'm a government employee. Yeah. So that's generally used as a general thing. Policies.
All right. One specific is waste regulation. So once something is classified as a waste, you may heat it to 600 degrees, but your product is still a waste. And there is a laborious procedure you can go through to get around it, but it literally takes months and months. So the simple message is, like the whole of the chemical industry judges a product by specification, it doesn't judge a product by what you made it from. So I think this is a general principle. And the insurance you've got, there are exacting standards already out there for biochar deployment. So, in a nutshell, that is the principal roadblock, which is really limiting materials. And, the obvious one is green waste. Councils have got tens and tens and tens of thousands of tons of the stuff, which goes to composting, but after composting, easily convert into biochar.
If I may also add to that, the specific regulation is the end of waste licensing for biochar. To your point, basically, I think there is you can only apply.
Yeah, I don't want to get too involved in all the detail, but there is a
waste licensing. Even we went to some consultants.
Yeah.
Said that if you are to apply biochar in the UK to get end of waste licensing, you first need to know where you're gonna physical area where you need to apply biochar. And for a lot of people, that's very challenging.
Yeah.
Because if you're using the carbon markets to finance your project initially, you don't have buy-in from the farmers. And in our experience, when you're trying to expand, you initially need to run a bunch of controls. And the uptake from farmers is really random. In a sense, maybe 5 months from now, one of the farmers where you had and had said yes to it,
that had agreed to it can change their mind, and then you have to go through the licensing process again, because that block of land can no longer take biochar. So that's like the very specific example would be that one. Yeah.
The next, Oliver's.
I think in general, something that we've seen around the world is especially the physical char can be the issue. Like I think selling credits has been quite straightforward for most projects, but getting a project financed, I think the physical biochar, because you only get credits once you apply the physical biochar to the soil, to concrete. And so figuring out how to best use the biochar and get those real world proof examples, I think will unlock the next stage to offtakes of biochar and then also funding. So I think That's for me one of the most important things to solve.
Zarak has gone. He has an important meeting, but as a Standard Chartered alumni, I think I can explain this. The structured finance landscape, there's more than enough innovation in structured finance that can be applied to the carbon markets. I think many people in this room, like Julien, will agree with me. The problem, I think, is the volume and seeing is believing and due diligence that just people don't understand this market. And that's why we're doing these kind of breakfast club. Of course, to eat breakfast, meet people, but also have a little bit of takeaway for the future. There are a lot of parallel structures in the past, like the solar panels and all of those sustainable financing structure. People in this room understand.
Yeah. So, well, whenever you're trying to approach a bank or a lender that will collateralize something to calculate what you can borrow effectively, they will always actualize your future cash flows. And historically in biochar, so in the global south, all you're often able to put forward is a contract for the CDR, which can be discounted and used for project finance loan or some similar things. In the global north, we tend to see also those PPAs or things for energy. They're also in there. But the additional line that is very often time missing is indeed the physical biochar offtake. And that could definitely increase the amount of funding available for biochar projects right away.
So next one, Henrietta, even though she has left, her opinion is it's already doable. Let's hope that that's the case. I'm going to give you guys this bankability lab for the next breakout. I understand people just want to have a conversation. It's usually interesting to have a structured conversation. So each table will get a prompt of a case. You can decide whether you want to talk about this, or there's another thing I really love. It's called hot seat. A hot seat is one person can talk about something on their mind that they want to solve. For you guys can be a biochar project or something like that. And then the other people can only ask questions, but not offering advice. Only ask questions, all share their own stories to inspire the person who have that problem on their mind. So you can choose whatever that you want to talk about. It could be the prompt that I give it out to you. This is our bankability lab for the next 20 minutes for 15 minutes.
We're having a very interesting discussion. Dan and I were comparing notes as to how to.
Yeah, Dan is, you have a startup in Israel?
I do. Yeah. We actually, one of the things that came up is we were kind of comparing the financial models between biochar and what we do, which is mycorrhizal inoculants and mycorrhizal carbon. It's products based on mycorrhizal fungi. And we apply them in croplands and sequester a whole lot of carbon. So one of the differences in the financing model is that we have a product that we sell up front, and we get the revenues from the sales of the products, and that finances the MRV. And so we need a lot less financing in order to accomplish that. And that's something
Why is a lot less for the fungi?
It's a lot less because we're charging the growers to enroll in the carbon program.
Are they happy?
And they're very happy because they get a lot of the net proceeds of the carbon credits at the end. And it's important for us to keep them happy because we don't want any reversals. We want to stay in the program for the long term. So we try to keep them very happy, and it works for everybody because now we can we're getting enough money up front to pay for the MRV, give or take. And then we sell the credits and divvy those up. And I don't see why that wouldn't work in biochar. I mean, I'm kind of starting to understand why it wouldn't with smallholder farmers, with the inconsistency of the product and things like that. But theoretically, you could reach a point where you sell the biochar to the growers, you make money, and put that into your MRV, put that into your project. That's the best kind of financing is no financing.
That's the best takeaway. And also, I noticed that the Netflix actually signed a fungi deal recently, right? They wanted to.
Fungi.
Yeah. So that's super interesting.
We signed with A New Climate, so we're
Oh, amazing. Staffer is our UK government people.
Do I have to explain the scenario, what we were given, or like?
No, whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, so we did actually.
You didn't talk about the scenario.
We did, yeah. So compliance frameworks, how do you finance when they're evolving? We thought it's possible to use compliance frameworks that they still exist. They might not be formal governmental ones, or like established in law, but they exist that you can use now. So that it provides a useful, I suppose, way of getting things moving. So basically find a framework or create one with someone like Asymmetric. Plug. What's the right mix of private insurance versus public guarantees? I think we concluded there's probably a role for both. My instinct would be to say public probably comes in where there's more risk than the private will take, but there's probably still a role for private when things become less risky but still a bit risky. How can policy clarity accelerate private capital? I don't know. This might sound a bit ironic coming from the government, but I think government is slow. So we need to innovate around the government, because if we wait for the government to do something, it will take too long. So find a way around it.
Round of applause for this table, actually discussing about the pump. You are as well? Oh.
No, we were just, we spoke about a few things, but we were talking about the benefits that you can get from aggregating. So if you bring things wider in terms of increasing financial value, which may be more palatable for investors and insurers and others, also diversifying that risk. So if you have a larger portfolio, the benefits of that diversification, and again, what that can potentially get you from a risk perspective as well. So yeah, we touched on that a little bit, touched on MRV slightly as well, and a little bit on compliance frameworks too more broadly. So it was a whole host of conversations.
Aggregating is actually something when I started Secure CDR is to aggregate the carbon credit contracts, because that's essentially what the insurance companies are doing. Because one, you de-risk, and two, you solve the problem of nobody actually wants to pay attention to 2 million deals. 2 million, I'm sorry guys, like it's just too small for banks. Doesn't matter how they say, it's just too small. My friends are doing like $1 billion deals. They don't have time for stuff like this. They keep telling me, Lydia, what you're doing is cute, like let's talk when you have at least 50 million. I think the biochar is actually the most, in my view, the next in line that can be financeable in the bank's system, because it's not something that's groundbreaking. So that's why we have this mentees. How comfortable are you explaining biochar to someone else now? I know a lot of people here are biochar experts, but I hope today with all the different type of games that we try to play, we will be able to capture a little bit of insights in a fun way, and you'll be able to tell another person about biochar and hopefully CDR in general. No matter how smart you are, I believe, at least I'm not that smart, like you can only solve a little bit of problem, but if you have a room of smart people, you can solve a lot of problem. Most of the people are very confident now, I can see. You're the more I know, the less confident, yeah. How would you describe your feeling about biochar now? A lot of people are excited, optimistic, excited, hopeful, and optimistic. Do you have an aha moment or unexpected learning from today?
So that's my aha from today.
Say that again.
These problems are general, not specific.
What's the problem?
About financing, offtake. How do you unlock, capital markets, project finance?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think from Carbo Unbound yesterday, I went to this panel by Jim Mann, the CEO of Conduit, and two other people about financing. And Jim was like, there's no green financing or climate financing, it's just financing. Yeah. I agree. I also think there's no like climate problem. It's just a problem that we all need to solve. And by chance, people in this room are trying to actively solving with climate. Tailoring technology, what does that mean?
It means that, as I understood that, you may buy expensive tech, you may buy cheap tech, but you will still need to basically tailor it to your specific the specific conditions of the feedstock and the climate.
Oh, okay, I got
So
you.
basically, yeah. So it's like there is no technology that fits all.
Yeah.
The Salamites are light tech can work with wood chips, can work with agricultural residues, etc., etc. But then at the end of the day, you will still end up tweaking the tech, and you need to put some funds aside to allow for that.
This was designed for people to share one exciting piece of news about either their life or their company. If nobody has an exciting piece of news, that's fine. Anyone have Sai, do you have an exciting piece of news that you want to share?
An exciting piece of news. Exciting is something that I think Zarak spoke about, biochar financing that's starting from India, right?
Yeah.
I think so that's somewhere biochar can really come into use. especially given that AQI in Delhi and other cities are like 500, 800 plus. And if you do use that capacity, it's just going to waste of burning biomass. If you use that biochar, you can go ahead.
Okay.
So that's what exciting news. So there's potential within the kingdom.
Yeah. Anyone else? Vasha,
Yes.
you're actually based in the US. Never got a chance to ask you to say anything. Do you have any exciting piece of news?
Wow. I'm Varsha. I think biochar is really bipartisan in the US.
That's good.
Right, yeah.
That's very exciting.
Yes, it surely is.
Share more. Why is it
Why? Because it takes, we don't have the waste regulation problem, but it takes like forestry waste, agriculture waste, which are typically bipartisan or like conservative supported initiatives, and creates value from them. And even though like climate as a branding or carbon removal doesn't get a lot of attention in the US, like waste to value does. And so we've seen we are excited about the growth in the sector from basically other businesses with waste products. Yeah, Offstream helps biomass conversion project developers with turnkey carbon credits, and we make it very easy. Yes, we are. Yeah, there is funding from the agriculture department around biochar. It's like messy to claim it right now though, because you need to purchase it and then get a reimbursement, but it still exists, and I think it'll become clearer how much of it exists in the next few months.
Because is it being reviewed in the next month? Because it is going to be reviewed.
No, it's the same way. Like you set a policy and then it has to cascade, and the funding is allocated by regional offices. So farmers have to believe that the regional office is going to pay them back when they purchase biochar, and most regional offices don't yet know the structure to do so. Yes. Yeah, of course.
Amazing. This is such a good piece of exciting news, and that gives me a lot of hope in climate right now. Co-benefit appeal. People are the most important on this journey, I think. We have the lucky draw. So I'm gonna just let the closest panelist to draw one for me. Open it.
It's yourself.
It's yourself, it's fine too.
And the winner is Josh.
Josh. What size of t-shirt you wear? As you can see, I also have a podcast. It's called Bite Size Climate Tech. And this is from my merch shop. They're eco-friendly produced. And it's very, very soft. And this is L. So that's not the only one. We have another one. And this time we're gonna let our sponsor sit. Ooh.
It's Felicity.
Ooh. This one is very special, okay? This one is a gift I received from the creator of this brand called Magic Box. It's a magic puzzle. So I think all the problem in climate nowadays is like it's like a puzzle. We need more people on this road to make magic happen. And this is 1,000 pieces of puzzle. They also, I think at the end you will find some kind of surprise. I have never played it.
Find a solution to
Climate change. This is the magic puzzles. So I went to a tech conference in Canada, and the founder of this company was there. So then they give a, yeah. I think it matched with you well, like the color and stuff. And this is my merch shop if people want to get there. This is the latest design for the winter. And tell us how we did, because I do want to continue arrange rooms like this. I imagine it's a little bit difficult for people who are outside of London to come here, so I really appreciate everyone staying until the end. Your support means the world to me. I'm constantly looking for aligned sponsors for the next event. I'll be taking a break from London from November onwards, but I will come back in March. So I'm taking the Carbon Removal Breakfast Club together with me to Lisbon next, and then we're gonna do the first APAC one in Hong Kong at the end of January. So if anyone happen to be in Hong Kong, I don't know how possible it is. We already have 5-6 sign up for the Hong Kong one. It's very surprising to me. The demographic who sign up for the Hong Kong one are usually the people who are like constantly pragmatically thinking how to move money into this market. I don't have many operators who sign up for that event. So if you happen to know anyone, It's gonna be there. Yes, and please fill in the form to let us know how we did. This is where I was gonna be next. As I mentioned, all of these type of flagship type of style carbon removal breakfast is all being recorded, and I will put it on the Carbon Removal Breakfast Club YouTube channel. On the channel, you can also find our previous events. Now it's our fruitful moment. We always have a closing tradition is everyone will take a selfie together. Can we all move to this part?
Let's make climate cooler!